everybody, it's your girl Keisha, Andy, MFN Editor, and this is the Fuzzy Cow Podcast, Episode 4, Season 2, brought to you by none other than Octans.
Indianapolis is home to world-class universities, major league sports teams, and fields of corn. However, now it's becoming home to crypto innovation and blockchain technology, all led by entrepreneurs who represent the heartland. We visited the Stand with Crypto Kickoff inaugural event to meet some of these leaders and legislators and to see how blockchain is showing up throughout the state of Indiana, along with what legacy Stand with Crypto leaders hope to leave in the state.
Hey everybody, it's your girl Keisha, Andy, MFN Editor with the Fuzzy Cow Podcast, coming to you live from the inaugural kickoff event for the Stand with Crypto chapter here in Indianapolis. And I have Aaron, how do you say your last name? Aaron Lassiter here with us. He was a panelist. You will see some of that footage a little bit later on in the show. But Aaron, I just want to talk to you a little bit about what you have going on, what you're here representing, and basically like how you kind of got into crypto. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what your business is.
So Aaron Lassiter, primarily a real estate entrepreneur today, but I've been in crypto for about a decade now. Got into Bitcoin very early, Ethereum very early, and also got into real estate very early while I was in college. And I'm currently building RDO. RD means land in Swahili, and I decided to to bring things full circle, giving the bottom 90% the opportunity to invest in asset classes, primarily reserved for the top 10%.
And let's talk about land, right? Because that's the one thing that you can't make more of, but it is the one thing that Indiana has a ton of. So it's kind of like being in Indiana. Is that what inspired your company? And what do you see? We use blockchain a lot as a financial use case. Obviously, it was the easiest, most adaptable use case to kind of get people to understand the concept of blockchain, right? How are you applying it to like land ownership or like what? Talk to me about how land is showing up on chain with RDO.
RDO is more so a platform for investing in multifamily assets and light industrial assets.
Okay.
So I will be fractionalizing
real
world assets instead of just land. So actual income producing assets versus land. It's not as profitable. It doesn't create as much cash flow as an asset with actual physical property on it.
Right.
So that's what I'm actually doing. Just fractionalizing actual physical buildings.
Hey everybody, we're here with Chad Main, who's the founder and owner of Custody Chain, which is a really innovative project and protocol based in the state of Indiana. So Chad, talk to me a little bit about, first of all, hello, let me say that. Hey, nice to have you. Thank you so much for being with us. Yes, absolutely. Talk to me a little bit about Custody Chain and kind of what inspired that.
My main company is called Percipient. It's a legal technology company.
Okay.
But we're building a piece of software called Custody Chain, which is built on Polygon and Ethereum.
Okay.
And I got the idea for the use case, the work we do. So what Percipient does as a legal technology company is it helps in-house corporate legal teams get through legal matters. Could be reviewing evidence for litigation. Could be responding to subpoenas. Could be analyzing contracts. But so if you have a legal matter and you have data that needs to be analyzed with software people, we provide that. So one of the pieces of data that we analyze is evidence from electronic devices like your phone, your computer. That stuff's introduced in court. Like a lot of times we'll hear about it in criminal matters, right? They look at the suspect's phone, but it's also done in civil matters. So if company A sues company B over something, maybe trademark infringers stealing customers, part of that evidence is like text messages, your WhatsApp and stuff. So all that stuff has to be gathered.
Right.
So I started thinking about this blockchain. It's perfect for this because it's immutable, it's transparent. Anybody that has the right transaction hash can go and verify that this device was where it was, when it said it was, and who had it. So that's and then what it does is it's a digital chain of custody record that's recorded, not a piece of paper, but on a blockchain.
Absolutely, and that's really interesting because you speak about kind of, a place that we haven't seen a lot of blockchain technology as of yet, which is in the legal field, and maybe even in the financial records field.
Right.
I mean, obviously, as a financial use case, blockchain is a distributed ledger which holds financial transactions. We all know that, right? But this idea about, again, the chain of custody, which I would imagine in the future to that legal conversation, right? This can help with things like crypto recovery and token recovery and just all other types of things where you have to figure out, again, where was this information at what point in time. And so just talk to me about, you know, in finality, 5 years from now, 10, 50, right? Because we have a lot of other things technologically coming down the hatch, right? We have quantum computing, we have AI, we have all these different things. What do you see the future of not only crypto being, right, with all these different technologies coming down the pipe, but how do you feel like Indiana will show up in that conversation?
Yeah, so I'm actually extremely optimistic, maybe more optimistic than most people.
Yeah.
But in 5 to 10 years, I do see very clear rules. Right now, I think there's still a lot of uncertainty that has, you know, kept a lot of not only institutions out of it, but also consumers out of cryptocurrency, so, and blockchain technology. So within that time, I definitely see a lot more clear rules, and I mean, there is no limit. We can take it very far in Indiana. It's very affordable to live here currently.
Currently,
So
right?
it's
Going up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. And what would you like to see in terms of blockchain's growth, progress, advocacy? You know, again, 50 years, right? 100 years. What would you like Indiana's claim to fame around blockchain to be?
Claim to fame. That they were pioneers, right? That, you know, that they created an environment such that people could come here and create this technology, build apps, with and you know, and be supported by the community, both politically and, you know, economically.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I don't want to give the impression at all that, you know, Indiana is like some type of Neanderthal state, right, where everybody's just on the cornfield toiling, right? Actually, a lot of people do not know this. Indiana is #1 in youth robotics globally, even over Japan, which is second to us, right? And we've held that for about 15 years now. And so just want to affirm and kind of like double down on what you're saying, that pioneering is good. And I think we already have a really good precedent in this state for the minds, especially of the youth, to kind of be malleable around these concepts and want to adopt these concepts and try them out. And so, yeah, I would like to see more adoption, like in the educational and in the school way, right? Because I really think it's always going to be the youth that carries it along.
Right, absolutely.
All right, everybody. So we're back again. This is your girl Keisha and the MFN Editor with the Fuzzy Cow Podcast. Of course, coming to you from the floor of the first ever kickoff event for the Stand with Crypto Indiana chapter. And we have Matt, what's your last name?
Humpler.
Matt Humpler with us. He is what is your position at Powder Keg?
CEO of Powder Keg.
He is the CEO of Powder Keg, which is a co-working space and kind of like also an incubator, would you say?
It's actually a membership community for tech entrepreneurs.
Okay.
We have peer groups for tech executives and founders who have reached kind of that product market fit and scaling stage.
Amazing. And so let's talk about, you know, Indiana's a big e-commerce, agriculture, right? We have like a lot of those kind of traditional, you know, more sectors in tech. How has blockchain shown up at Powder Keg? Kind of like, what does that look like?
Yeah, a lot of the executives in our community are building some kind of like side projects with blockchain.
Okay.
I'd say it hasn't really shown up in a lot of the like actual software that's being purchased currently in this ecosystem. But I think it is one of those things that a lot of the technology innovators here in the community see the potential of.
Yeah.
And it's certainly on the radar in R&D. There are a few entrepreneurs that are going all in on blockchain, all in on crypto.
For sure.
But I would say a lot of that tends to be a little bit more centered in some of the other tech hubs that we serve.
Absolutely. And, you know, in terms of like apprehensions or reluctances or even like delays to kind of pick up the blockchain mantle, right? What do you think from your insight, right? Kind of just working with technologists and also in entrepreneurs, right? What do you feel like some of their barriers to entry are, some of their, you know, reluctances are?
I mean, I think with anything, the barrier of picking something up and building with it is like having that ability to monetize it.
Absolutely.
You know, a demand for whatever that piece of technology delivers.
Yeah.
Right now, AI is definitely like the hot thing that is providing a lot of utility, a lot of innovation. I'll be interested to see how that's applied with some of the other technologies like blockchain.
Yeah.
And it certainly already is within the tech ecosystem, but I'll be interested to see as more builders use some of these tools.
You know, looking 5 years into the future, 10, 15, 50, right? Especially when we speak about like AI, we have quantum computing, right? We have so many things that we don't even know what the words for them are yet coming, right? And all of these technologies kind of have to coexist, or, you know, only the strongest will survive. But what do you think Indiana's like claim to fame around blockchain or just being a technology hub will be in, you know, decades to come?
I would imagine it will probably be some extrapolation of what it is now, which is building solid businesses with solid business fundamentals. You think about Exact Target, Angie's List, Interactive Intelligence, some of the bigger exits that we've had that have returned capital back to the community, invested in the next wave of startups. I think we're going to see that we're already seeing that from the next wave of startups and scale-ups. Our community has seen a bunch of 9 and 8-figure exits in the last few years. And so I think 5-10 years from now, that could look like blockchain, it could look like crypto. It will certainly involve AI or some iteration of it. And I think you'll see a lot of entrepreneurs, our sweet spot being in providing real utility, charging for it, building business models from the outset that can actually fuel growth and sustain through the ups and downs of any kind of economic growth or downturn.
Absolutely. Matt, how can the people get in touch with you? How can they learn more about Powder Keg?
Powderkeg.com. And I'm
pretty simple.
At Hunkler on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Matt. We appreciate you.
Absolutely. So, a little bit about myself. So, I've been in the greater crypto space for a little over 10 years. What motivated me getting into the blockchain space was actually, I was scammed. So I learned quickly, though, about the technology and what was really kind of going on in the space. And I quickly realized that there was a gap between builders and technologists and lawmakers who were learning more about the space.
Absolutely.
And I said, hey, look, why not here in Indiana? So fast forward today, I'm an attorney in the space. I run my own practice. And I've helped
What's the name of your practice?
Restored Law. And I've built a lot of relationship with a lot of companies that are building this space over the years. And I'm excited for where it's heading, and Indiana is definitely going to be a part of it.
My name is Brandon Street. What brought me more so into the crypto space was opportunity. I'm looking to see how we can make money. I'm just being straight up and honest with you. That's kind of how I got here. And then after I got involved and was able to make a couple coins, I said, you know what, I need to put my family on, put my friends on. I need to teach other people. So hence IC Growth is my organization that I started for crypto education. It stands for Invest Compound Growth. And we're here and we're doing what we do.
People think that innovation and technology and financial literacy all is on the West Coast and the East Coast. But my mantra is, look, the crossroads of America is also somewhere on the map that I think also has those opportunities. I talk with people every day that are just as bright-minded and open and honest as anybody else across the entire country. So I told myself, being a born, raised Hoosier, I said, look, you know what? Why not us? 5 to 10 years, I think we're going to look back at Indiana and say, look, we were one of the states here in the Midwest that really took charge and took the opportunity and grabbed it by the horns and said, hey, look, you know what? Indiana is here as well. We're the crossroads of America. We used to be, like you said, a flyover state, but now we're a fly-in state. And now I think there's an opportunity here. And I think for us laying kind of that foundation today, putting that fertile soil down into the ground is going to bode well in the future for us.
I agree.
Yeah, 100%. And as a minority, I've had a difficult time going through life, figuring things out, making the right connections in the right spaces.
Right.
Getting connected to some of our counterparts that already kind of have a leg up.
Absolutely.
And I have to be able to be diverse in that way. I got to be able to talk the talk and walk the walk. They want to see me for who I am and they want to meet me where I'm at. I don't need a handout. I don't want no pity. So I don't want to, hey, I'm a minority, come to me. No. But as a minority, I still want you to see me.
Yeah.
And even more respect to the minorities out here doing their thing because we got to kind of get it out the mud a little bit. So
Listen to myself and a few other leaders throughout the state who are building and bringing blockchain to Indianapolis. We discuss Midwest momentum and what innovation looks like.
Awesome. Thank you all for being here and for listening to the third panel today. Really appreciate you guys. We'll have some cool conversation with 3 very experienced people here in Web3. We'll have Hedges Pool, the Fuzzy Podcast, and Custody Chain. And I'd love to start with Chad because he's right next to me. Makes it really easy. And I just kind of want to hear about your overall, I've got questions, but before I even get into the question, I want to hear about your overall perspective on what we have here on the screen, innovation and opportunity in the Midwest in the Web3. So tell me what you feel about that as far as how Indiana, being the flyover state, and of course the surrounding Midwest, can really take action on the innovation within this region?
Thanks, Barry. Thanks for having me. So I moved my company down here from Chicago about 2 years ago. Various reasons, but there's a lot. One thing I noticed pretty quickly is there's a lot of untapped opportunity. The state in general has already been alluded to. It's favorable to building businesses, you know. And I think it was Jason from Europe who mentioned earlier all the good schools. Like, so I was only here maybe 6 months. I was able to find killer CTO who's actually here. So, and then I think that, you know, things like this, getting stable crypto going, so we can educate the legislatures, people in general, about the benefits of crypto, the future of crypto. I think just people are willing to learn, and it's a favorable climate. It's a favorable climate in the state to grow business.
Thank you for that. And I'd love to ask you, Keisha, the same question as far as how you feel with innovation in the Midwest and the Web3 community, and what your thoughts are about Indiana in particular taking the reins of the Web3 community.
Can y'all hear me? I think they can hear me. It's all good. I really feel like, for me in Indiana, I feel like, for me as a person who's had to travel, I've had to have a lot of remote opportunities to connect to Web3, which has really helped, I feel like, kind of turn me into a global citizen, right? It's really interesting this year being a part of Stand With Crypto and starting to see, 4 or 5 years after kind of like crypto's true mainstream adoption. I mean, it's been kind of in the media now. People have been talking about it since 2015 for sure, in various capacities. But now that we are starting to see more entities and more just common people speak about it, it's been nice having organizations like Stand With Crypto to be a part of. Outside of that, to be frank and honest with you, I don't really see a ton of opportunity just yet because I don't really see a ton of resonance or people really understanding how it applies to them. I think people think that blockchain is high science. I think they think there are a lot of barriers to entry, and obviously crypto has a negative, stint. I mean, it's got a lot of marketing around it that's not positive. It's for people who, especially in the Midwest, right, when we talk about like kitchen table politics and the things that people are worried about, they don't really feel like it's as safe for them or something that they have the time and opportunity to really pay attention to. And so I would love to see a lot of advocacy and conversations, and for me personally, I try to do that at the grassroots level, which is youth. I really feel like millennials in a lot of ways are a lost cause, and in some ways baby boomers are definitely. But I think that, 18 years ago, somebody that came to Robertville High School and said, hey, you work every 2 weeks, you get $10. You know what I mean? Just buy Bitcoin and see what happens, right? That would be a completely different situation and scenario, for everybody that had heard that information. So I try to take that same type of motivation and take that same wish that I wish somebody had given to me, and I try to go into the schools and give back. So I hope that through that way, right, and through the conversations of the youth, that we put it more on their mind so that it just unanimously and organically becomes more of a conversation, a topic, right, and we find more innovation that way.
So I think the technology is a lot more mature now, and I know it's not maybe table politics, but you can, especially with the regulatory clarity too, you can find something that you're interested in and see how you can apply that with blockchain. For me personally, I'm interested in staking with my pool. I can go into a little bit more about what staking is too, but also I'm interested in sports tech. Indianapolis, Indiana really tries to make sports tech, so I'm also building a fantasy tennis platform. I'm thinking about, how can I apply the rails of blockchain to a fantasy tennis platform? My mind goes to skill-based gaming, peer-to-peer transactions. So I think you can kind of find synergies a lot more easier now because technology and regulatory clarity is really good.
Thank you for that. But I wanted to hear more from the staking aspect. I know you have some experience in that, and I'm wondering if you could give everyone here a quick synopsis on what staking is and how the Indiana infrastructure could benefit from staking protocol.
So staking is actually kind of a loaded word. So I want to break it down into protocol staking and liquid staking. And these can sometimes be the same, but starting with protocol staking, this is what proof of stake blockchains offer. And so Hedges Pool is a validator for Cardano, which is a proof of stake network. And the role of Hedges Pool is to validate transactions and keep the source of truth in mint blocks for Cardano. And stakers can passively participate in this process as well. They don't have to run any infrastructure. They can delegate their staking power. So they remain full custodian of their assets, and they can delegate the staking power, which gives Hedges Pool or any other validator an opportunity to mint blocks, and everybody then shares yield that protocol provides. So you're getting the yield, you're incentivized to do it, but you're also securing and decentralizing the network as well, because the more people like Hedges Pool that are validating transactions, the lower the amount of single point of failure. You know, it's like Hedges Pool was the only one that went back well, and if I went away someday, it would be bad. So more participants makes the ecosystem more robust. So, I mean, as far as getting involved, it's actually there's multiple avenues you can go, and you can easily run your own hardware at home. You can do a cloud-based solution if you want to run your own infrastructure, or like I said, do it passively, so you can delegate the responsibility to an operator and still get reward for that.
This next one is for you, Chad. I want to bridge into that. I know Custody Chain is tackling custody and trust when it comes to blockchain. So I'd love to hear your perspective on how Indiana can provide a foundation in the building space as far as trust goes when it comes to custody, since you mentioned the custodial aspect.
Well, I think it's even bigger than just custody and kind of blockchain crypto space. Trust. I think this is why I'm so happy that there is a chapter to crypto. The most important things needs to happen with education, even before we get to state housing. There's so many false narratives around blockchain that erodes trust. It's still associated with Silk Road and criminals. I think that's one thing we got to do is, like I mentioned before, the first answer is there's a lot of untapped potential. What's keeping people from coming on board is just mental health. No, it's like that's building trust in technology itself. It's very important because I think it's lost from narratives is technology is neutral. Used for a lot of good things and of course used for bad things. And I wonder, some good thing a lot about this too is I wonder if that is on us in the community and the industry where we love the tech so much, we believe in it so much, it's such a paradigm changer that it's decentralized, immutable, and all these terms that people don't know. And I compare that to when email came out. No one really knows how email works. The average Joe doesn't. They don't care. They quickly go for ATM. They don't really care what's behind it, what's underneath. But they just put their money, their card in and get their money. So I think that one answer to this is you got to build trust in the ecosystem itself. That starts with education.
That's a great point. And Keisha, I'd love to hear your perspective on this question. He talked about the narrative, and you kind of spoke on that a little bit earlier. So talk to me about what you do and how you can kind of help shift the narrative on the negativity around crypto.
Yes, I'm a journalist by craft and by trade, but I'm also an engineer. I'm a full stack developer, which is how I got into crypto. I went to the 1150 Academy in 2020, because they were giving out free tuition. And I became an engineer, and my intention was to be a technical writer. Thought, hey, I could just write some tutorials real quick, but it came to find out that people in blockchain specifically felt like there was a communication barrier and a real deficit in the industry of people who knew how to talk about this to other people. Then I got a job not even 6 weeks after graduation with Ledger, where I became their lead content creator for their developer portal. And after I started writing articles for the developer portal, my manager was like, well, you seem to really be good at this and also seem to be an incredibly real person. Would you like to be our North American dev lead, because we don't have any employees in this department in North America. So from that, I became their North American dev lead, which means in Canada and Mexico, I went around and taught conferences and workshops and, educated developers on how to use Ledger and how to start building with the wallet on their marketplace. And I will say in my experience, obviously, right, there's a lot of relativity and a lot of resonance people find in me. My name is Keisha, I'm a black woman, you know what I mean? I have a very colloquial, type of speech. It's not really like a lot of pretense over here, and that helps. But I also have real people problems. And I think that even the way that we speak about those outside of the industry, within the industry, calling them normies and stuff, which is almost like a derogatory term, you know what I mean? It's very pejorative in terms of like there's this delineation between people outside and inside, and a lot of that is contrived. So when we talk about language and we talk about culture, I think that we do ourselves a disservice to not be honest about the fact that a lot of the, kind of like repulsiveness of it, or like the thing that repels people, is intentional, because there hasn't always been a desire, to have everybody else be a part of this or to have these conversations. As the industry has grown and has scaled, and adoption is necessary, and, we live in a capitalist country, you want to be successful, somebody outside of you is going to have to purchase what you're selling. Then these conversations have become necessary about shifting narrative and stuff like that. But I think that at the root, the fundamental issue with narrative and the fundamental issue with connection and blockchain is that there aren't many people. First of all, let me say, what I believe very much so is that as it stands and as it has been, blockchain is the middle class of every nation in the world talking to each other. And that's a problem. Because the middle class of every nation is going to relatively have the same perspective, and the same ideas. We don't need more technology for people who live comfortable lives to live more comfortable lives. Like, we don't need that. We need technology that helps impossible lives be made possible, right? And to help uncomfortable situations be made comfortable. And that is why adoption is such an issue in this country, is because as of right now, we're kind of like in a building cage scenario, which even though we can feel pressure from every point, we don't really see the cracks in the veneer that make a financial use case for blockchain really, really like important for all of us. Whereas in like Venezuela or Greece or Brazil, it's not an option. In Ghana, it's not an option. You know what I mean? So we are kind of held. We're in a weird position because of the fact that we feel like we have so many choices, but our choices are actually harmful to us. And also, too, like I said again about the kitchen table politics, right? When you see that people are losing massive amounts of money, they're losing life savings, they're losing safety and security. That's a hard hill to climb when you're trying to evangelize or like convince somebody that it's good for them, right? Which is why we need more builders that represent different demographics. We need more business owners that are coming from different backgrounds. And what I try to do is speak about, again, just like very transparently, as a person who doesn't pay every bill on time, right? As a person who moves money around when I need to, right? How this has helped me in my life, not only stay afloat and start to thrive in ways that I haven't and wouldn't have had access historically to before, which again goes back to me wanting to teach the children, because if we can start with them, right, before they even get like incubated and introduced to this economic system, and give them the idea that they're not oppressed but they have options, that's a whole different conversation and a different lifestyle than what most of us have grown up in.
Yes, that's a great point. Thank you so much for that perspective. I totally agree. Definitely starts with the young. It'll be a different world if everyone 8 years old enough starts learning about blockchain. There's actually like a children's book and like a little animated cartoon that talks about Bitcoin that's been circulating on the internet. It's really like a third grade little graphic video. It's pretty cool. So great perspective. I'd also love to hear from Hedges Pool on the technical side of things. How you think that what Keisha just said relates to and maybe some of the information that you have goes over the average person's head. So how can we bring the staking protocols down to the ground level to where it can be integrated into modern day society, like everyday usage?
Yeah, and I've been trying to solve that problem since I started this. To me it makes sense, but that's not, I learned to show people why it affects their life makes things easier for them. I mean, my perspective, like protocol side of things, it's like you have full control and you know where the yield comes from, which is a very important aspect. You want to know how am I earning this money, and is somebody able to take this money away from me? Those are two foundational aspects. I mean, as far as how we can educate people more, I mean, I would love to hear your thoughts on staking in particular. I mean, the barrier to entry also, we have to have a Web3 wallet, and that's tough sometimes for a lot of people because you need your seed phrase, you need the 24 words or 12 words, and that's such a bedrock. Like, I have these 12 words, nobody can take this money away from me, but at the same time, you have to have these 12 words, and you have to remember them, you have to know where they are, and so there's just this friction point, and I think we do need to offer current Web2 solutions, but give them the security of Web3. So, I mean, like, social, single sign-on, how can we do a Google login, but give them the same benefits of having a wallet, giving them the education to say, okay, I have this wallet, how do I take full custody of it after I kind of had a few interactions with it? Because, I mean, right now in the Web2 world, like, you had to create a wallet and spend money before you can interact with the site or stake or learn about staking. You know, it's going to deter a lot of people. So I think if we can apply some of these ease of use principles, but benefit from the security benefits that it has, that's what we need to find out.
Thank you. Go ahead.
And I just want to add to that, like, I think it's really important when talking about blockchain, right? Especially because blockchain is not just for money, but that is the first use case to get people to understand the power of what blockchain can do, right? So I'm gonna say first, we need to like start moving beyond just demonstrating what can be done on blockchain by using financial use cases. But in terms of education, like, it's really about relativity. There's nothing happening in DeFi that isn't based on TradFi, right? A seed phrase is a PIN number, you know what I mean? A wallet is a wallet, you know what I mean? Like, we can go on like that. Typically when I start to introduce things, like I do talk about traditional, traditional financial literacy, right? To start to talk about like, well, when we talk about trading, well, what are we relating that to? Or why is it called trading? Well, that's based off the stock exchange. Well, what is a stock exchange? And what is a crypto exchange? Oh, okay. You know, and then you can start to like see the parallels. And so it's really just about understanding what you're building on top of. And I think that that's the piece that's missing for people, right? They're not understanding that it's not that we're proposing that fintech or DeFi, you know what I mean? It's completely reimagined on chain. We're just showing you that with the principles and concepts that you're already familiar with, which are currently not really serving you, because the reality of it is, right, I could be somewhere at 2 o'clock in the morning, as you said, and I could have $700 in my bank account, but for whatever reason, Chase has moved the money around, and there's no money in my bank account at 2 o'clock in the morning, but as a lady, I have somewhere I need to go, or maybe I'm in a bad situation and I need to get out of it, you know what I mean? And now it's weird for me, right? Or the bank could freeze my assets at any time because they made a mistake, you know? So the danger of your resources being taken from you are a common and present danger in the American, you know what I mean, mindset. And really what it comes down to is, do you trust your government? And when we talk about custody versus like, you know, self-custody, right? Do you trust yourself enough to really be responsible for your own self-actualization, right? Like that's really what it's about. Are you responsible enough? Do you feel comfortable enough really truly managing your own resources? Because if you don't, that's an important conversation to have with yourself and be honest. Like, no, I maybe feel comfortable with some safeguards and I feel comfortable with somebody else holding that for me, right? But if you don't, or if that's something that you don't want to do, then this would be an alternative. And I think that in so many ways, right, before you come over to the side or you decide to get involved in this, there are real conversations that you have to have about, you know, with yourself about your perspective on things, and again, what your own level of inner security and sanctum, like safety is, you know?
Absolutely, 100%. I think that the fact that we're doing this and we're going to continue to do this will make everyone in the room and others more comfortable. You know, you're tiptoeing into the industry, if you're new to the industry, learn more. Everyone wants to know how to make money in this industry, but like Keisha said, you gotta crawl before you can walk. Understand what you're investing into before you just ask, how do I make money? Because if you're asking those questions, someone can just tell you, oh, buy into this, and then you're gonna point the finger at them when it goes south for you. So start with the educational piece, get comfortable, and then, to your point, tell a friend right after that, and then continue to go and expand the community. I'm gonna talk about some other stuff here in a bit, more about the community side of it, but I think that'll be all for our panel today. Thank you guys so much for joining, and I appreciate it.